So here's the main theses of Allen's work. Please bear with me, we'll go through these, but again, you'll find all this on the webpage and elsewhere. The white race was invented as a ruling class social control formation in response to labor solidarity as manifested in the latter Civil War stages of Bacon's Rebellion. It's the Civil War stage, the second stage of Bacon's Rebellion, when people start coming together, right? The way it was done, a system of racial privileges was deliberately instituted by the late 17th, early 18th century Anglo-American bourgeoisie in order to define and establish the white race and to establish a system of racial oppression. And Allen goes on to argue the consequence was not only ruinous for African Americans, it was, but was also disastrous for European American workers, right? And their position, he elaborates, their position in relation to the rich and powerful was not improved, but it was weakened by the white skin privilege system. So Allen is arguing the invention of the white race was political. He's arguing the white race must be understood not simply as a social construct, but as a ruling class social control formation. I want to elaborate on that. In 1997, a professor, it might have been in Atlantic, I can't remember, it might have been in Atlantic, Fredrickson, who writes on South Africa and elsewhere, writes the idea that race is a social construct is now an academic cliche. Everyone knows race is a social construct. And what Allen says is no, that's not enough to say that. Because if you say race is a social construct and leave it there, you leave the back door open for the Dinesh D'Souza's and the Daniel Patrick Moynahans who will argue, well, yeah, but that explains blacks' inferior status because of family life or cultural background, right? Allen says, no, 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 you don't want to leave that escape hatch for these people. You have to understand and put it right where it belongs. It serves ruling class interests. Now, I come out of the labor movement, 33 years in the labor movement, postal worker, lots of things. And we tried to wage struggle against the bosses, and putting the struggle against white supremacy is key, as central, and we have many rich experiences, but maybe some other time we can talk about that. But one of the worst things in the labor movement you can run into is a class collaborationist, a co-worker who sides with the bosses, right? There was some talk about how they get dealt with in different situations. But what Allen argues, yeah, the white race is an all-class association, multi-class, that's what the white race is, held together by racial privileges. The key privileges that hold it together are those conferred on laboring class European Americans. So he argues it's the most basic, prevalent, and historic form of class collaboration in this country, the white race, right? It has served as the principal historic guarantor of ruling class domination of national life. It's what they turn to. He says white supremacism is the Achilles heel of the labor, democratic, and socialist movements. White identity is the main barrier to class consciousness in the U.S., right? We're going to get into this more because this takes it a little deeper. Okay, now we're going to do a segue from Hubert Harrison, and then we're getting into Allen deep. But Harrison helps explain Allen. And yesterday, as I said, I was so stimulated by what I heard and some of the people I spoke with, but I realized many people here were not familiar with Hubert Harrison, and it's unfortunate because he is a giant of our history, right? So Hubert Harrison lives from and I'm only doing a few slides, but on the webpage you can find hours worth, and videos. But he's a brilliant intellectual, a race and class conscious radical internationalist. He is known as the father of Harlem radicalism. That phrase was given to him, that term, that name, moniker, by A. Philip Randolph and others. And he's a key ideological link in the two wings of the civil rights black liberation struggle. Let me explain. And also on these, now I've got over there on the table, this is volume 1 of my 2-volume biography on Harrison. It's Columbia University Press. It's over 600 pages. If you get a chance to look at it, it's got wonderful reviews, again, by activists and scholars you'll be familiar with, I think. And it's over 600 pages. It's 116 pages of notes, 60 pages of photos with detailed captions, and it's volume 1. It is the first, I'm working on volume 2 now, trying to finish it. It'll be the first multi-volume biography of an Afro-Caribbean and only the 5th of an African-American after Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, Langston Hughes, and Martin Luther King Jr. He is a giant of black history.